Dario, you are just back from an incredible trip in Mexico where you were able to interview a couple of the students that have been involved in some of the demonstrations, as well as providing this backgrounder on what is actually happening there in Mexico City.
Just by way of kind of introduction, obviously the protests yesterday were related to the kidnapping of the 43 student teachers.
We saw yesterday a big amount of citizens that are well, they're looking for a change.
So would you say that there is a specific agenda that this protest was trying to push forward?
The fathers of the students want they just want justice.
Sure.
And now all the people are using this protest, this movement, to say that they want the president to go out.
Sure.
To look at the fact that we are in a capital that has like 20 different march every day.
So in the UK, the kind of reason for a lot of this political corruption is what we hear in the newspapers is there's this relationship between the drug cartels and the politicians.
Well, here in the city, Mexico City, it really doesn't show that.
Okay.
But you can go to Tamaulipas, you can go to Chihuahua, you can go to Monterrey, you can go to all of that places,
Right.
and you can see a really deep relationship
Right.
between them.
If we go to these other states, there are towns with just a few population living there.
Sure.
Yeah, we can see how the government is involved with the drug cartels, and they make some kind of alliance
Right.
to help each other.
So I also read that a mayor of, is it Iguala, who was arrested. He was from the opposition parties, from the leftist party. He's been directly connected to the kidnapping. So
Yes.
it's kind of both left and right. So is that one of the major problems? Is the whole political structure is kind of seen as corrupt?
Yeah, well, all the political parties in Mexico, PAN, PRI, and PER, they are involved in organized crime. They are involved with these groups that are trying to destabilize the country. That President Enrique yesterday said that there are some groups that they want to broke the nation's project. They want
Sure.
to broke the society. But we have to, well, people need to know that all the political parties are involved somehow in the problems that are in Mexico.
Right, okay.
Yeah,
Right.
sadly here in Mexico there is a big lack of economic resources for education, and that's getting less every year.
Sure.
Less every year, and there is more for security,
Right.
more for the army,
Yeah.
more for striking the drug cartels and all that. But
With the lack of education that we have in Mexico, there are few students, I include myself in that group, that they want to improve themselves, and they want to make,
Sure.
well, they want to try to make a change
Yeah.
in the country, and told to the society to,
Sure.
hey, open your eyes and just try to look at the subject the way it is, not trying to go other ways. People are tired. People are very tired, but I don't think that every single person in Mexico supports the protest. Some of them, I think, they might say, yes, we need to do something. Not only the protest. We need
Sure.
to do something. We need to talk with the politicians. We need to do our own political party or our own organization. And there are also on the other side people that support the protest. We saw that yesterday. There were a lot, millions of people, almost millions of people yesterday at the protest.
So, Dario, tell us a little bit about your experience down there.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of accidental, really. I was there for a sort of academic conference, and these protests were coming up. I learnt about the story of the 43 student teachers who had been kidnapped, read a little bit around it, and you sort of discover the level of government corruption and the integration of the drug cartels within the government there. And I managed to speak to some students and a university professor, the two students that were just speaking there, university professor, sort of giving me a little bit of background. And of course, were talking with the guys from the conference. It was the main topic of conversation, and really interesting. Just being in Mexico, you know, a really sort of unnerving place to be if you're not used to guns. You know, everywhere I went, there was sort of cops and guns everywhere. Even going into a sort of 7-Eleven or a Spar, there's a security guard with a 3-foot shotgun, and you know, it really sort of brings home to you the sort of levels of violence and insecurity that are in that country. And just talking to the students, I felt bad for them in terms of the level of pessimism and the fact that there is no kind of democratic process that they feel is benefiting them, and the justice that they feel that haven't been served, and the ineptitude of the government in being able to find these 43 students. But of course, it's been going on for an awful long time, and it seems that in 2000 there was a devolvement of power from the federal government to the regional areas, and that allowed the cartels to be able to get their hooks into local politicians and run these local areas. So it really is a depressing situation over there.
It was really interesting, Dario, because I took your roughly 23-minute raw interview and put it down into this little piece. And by the way, for any listener that wishes to hear the full 25-minute interview, it will be up shortly on DarioLlinares.com. What I found fascinating was the difference between so-called Mexico City as a major, almost European-like city, and what the young people were saying about what life was like in some of the smaller, more rural states. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, there's definitely a big difference, I think, from the rural to the metropolitan. And you know, spending time in Mexico City, it could have been Barcelona, it could have been Paris, it could have been Milan. Very sort of European style, you know, coffee shops everywhere and this kind of thing. But as I say, a high level of policing. But if you go to the rural areas, and Guerrero was this rural area which is the major center for drug production in Mexico, and there's high levels of illiteracy. And as I say, the integration between the local politicians and the gangs, the drug cartels, is just an everyday way of life there. And I think that integration means that the drug cartels are able to get information about who has money, who is running particular wings of government at different times, and really allows them to control what is going on in these provincial areas. And the federal government doesn't seem to have any way of tackling what's going on in the provinces.
The thing is, Dario, I mean, it's such a vast. I mean, I'm sure you got this impression. It's a vast country with a huge potential, and what's
absolutely.
so amazing is that it's right on the doorstep of this massively successful and powerful country. You know, why isn't it up there with them?
Well, I think, you know, it goes back to Mexico's long history of, you know, post-revolution. They had a very powerful dictatorial kind of government, and as I said before, in 2000, there was more of a devolvement of power for the first time. So you go from a dictatorship which has a strong arm and actually controls the country a lot more, and there's a lot of safety, but in a move to a kind of a good intentional shift to move to more democracy and a sharing out of power, that has actually allowed the drug cartels to encroach into the political system in a slightly different kind of way.
What I found astounding in that interview was when the young lad, I forget which one of the two, said that some of these rural states with the drug lords and the drug cartels have more firepower than the army. More firepower than the government.
Yeah, it's absolutely scary, and I think that there is a very big difference. Let's say from the federal to the state difference that say you get in America. There's a big disjuncture, a big separation between those two things. And like you say, you know, these cartels they pay for their own militia armies, and the 43 guys that were kidnapped. And they're presumed dead. Nobody knows where they are. They were trying to enact some kind of democratic dissent they commandeered three buses from the school that they're studying in to go to this protest. And there was some kind of collaboration between the opposition party, the mayor there apparently, who used the police to actually kidnap these guys. So it's absolutely, I mean, can you imagine over here if the opposition party, the Labour Party, were discovered having kidnapped 43 students? Can you imagine what the outcry would have been? I mean, it would have been political carnage. But this is a thing that's been going on over time in Mexico for a long time.
Well, the other interesting start again, Dennis. Get the mouth to work. The other interesting thing about the coverage was that while you were there, it actually made the morning programs and a couple of newscasts of the major U.S. media, but it was always from the perspective of crowd unrest and riots in Mexico City.
Yeah.
It was a one time, one event, one day story.
Sure.
But as your reporting and interview indicated, this was going on since the end of September, and then listening to the students, the litany of people who have been, quote unquote, disappeared as a result of speaking up against the government. It was truly astonishing. That combined with the fact that there are sometimes as many as 20 different demonstrations each and every day. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, the students were saying there's a demonstration for everything in Mexico, that's for sure. But the media is very similar in Mexico as it has been throughout the world. I mean, the president, Peña Nieto, was in the newspapers saying that the students are trying to deliberately destabilize the country. So again, the shift in the story goes on to the violence. And yeah, there is a sort of anarchist element in the protest. As I was there, we were kind of eating dinner later on, and the group that we were in were getting Twitter messages and text messages saying that there's some violence going on here, but a lot of them blame the government themselves. They're saying that these are professional infiltrators that are there to cause up trouble, and they're setting fire to Mexico's ancient landmarks. I mean, why not set fire to McDonald's or Starbucks? Leave the ancient landmarks alone if you're going to set fire to something. So, yeah.
Phil, this reminds me so much of what happened with the coverage in Egypt 3 years ago when they first started in Tahrir Square.
Absolutely. I mean, to me, it smacks a lot of the sort of, an insight into the way the media will handle events. And, there's a lot wrong with news media when it becomes a sort of, the story is, in quotes, violence or protests in Mexico, when you've got all this number of people who've been kidnapped, And I think, actually, it goes back to this issue of, well, it's only Mexico, isn't it? It's only Mexicans. The reporting of Ebola suddenly became news when a Spanish nurse was in quarantine. Oh dear, it's a Spanish nurse, And then it may have entered America. Oh dear, and yet thousands of people in Africa have died, And this is all part of the same thing.
It's also spectacle, though, isn't it, Phil? It's the idea that news is entertainment, and if there's violent, hooded protesters setting fire to things, that's an interesting story worth covering from the corporate media's point of view. But to take the time to do an in-depth report on the whole story, as Dennis said, is something that is not going to grab the headlines in the same way.